Hello everyone, my name's Tyler. Welcome to another video of Fortnite Battle Royale Ideas, the series where you give your ideas for Fortnite and I'll give you my thoughts and implementations on the ideas. If you're enjoying the series, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this. This video marks the 24th video in the series and I've got well over 30, yes, 30 more Fortnite idea videos on the way with more comments coming in. So, like I said, if you're enjoying it, thumbs up these videos as it tremendously helps the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. In today's video, we will be talking about throwing knives and a similar item with a crazy ability, the boomerang. Today's video idea comes from RKO12395, who mentions throwing knives and that if the knife misses you, you could pick them back up from where they landed or what they are stuck in. He says you should find them in pairs and they would come in different rarities, with higher rarities having increased durability. Darnell Titley mentions a legendary version of these throwing knives in the form of a tomahawk. Assassin Gamer 22 mentions the idea of throwing items. He says an item that would make barely any noise, they would do low damage to the body and high damage to the head. They could come in different rarities. For example, a common variant would be a rock. Gandalf LC mentions throwing knives that would be precise but have an arc when thrown. They would come in packs of 3 and only do 10 base damage but have a bleeding effect that would do damage over time, something like 2 damage per second for 3 seconds. And the crazy one, the one that could be controversial, but I think has potential to be a lot of fun, the boomerang. This idea comes from Darnell Titley, a legendary item. It could be thrown 2 to 3 times before it breaks. Once it's thrown, it will leave an empty spot in your inventory. If you're able to hit an enemy with the boomerang, it will steal whatever item they have equipped and return itself and the stolen item to the player's inventory, assuming there's a free slot. The stolen item would take priority, and if there's no space in your inventory, both would drop to the ground. Maybe the boomerang could even break after it successfully steals an item. In the background, you're seeing some very special gameplay. All kinds of stuff happened. Dropped at duos in Moisty. Duo buddy dies immediately. Rotate towards the edge of the map to find the world's most inaccurate Fortnite player. Find a llama. Bait a loot drop with C4 successfully. Take down multiple duos by myself. Get a trap kill. Take out the last remaining players. It was a fun game. You're going to enjoy this one. When you see a thrown item in shooter games, they're often items that are just there for fun. And by that I mean, while there is some viability to them, they're more there for fun's sake and more to challenge yourself than to get great gameplays with them. A lot of times they're used for epic hilarious moments rather than being the most optimal thing to use. And while I do think throwing knives could be added into the game in this way, I also think that they have a viable and unique place as a weapon within Fortnite. I would equate them similar to the boogie nade, not in the way it functions, but in how the boogie nade can be used for those hilarious moments and isn't the best item to have, but is still viable enough that you can warrant carrying it to get a kill. So how would a throwing knife set itself apart? I think the ability to do sustained damage would be the most unique aspect of such a weapon, but I also think it can be a stealth item that can be used effectively at any range. Currently you have the crossbow for ranged stealth, arguably not the best weapon. For close quarters you have the suppressed pistol, an item that I think is highly underrated. And then you have nothing for stealth options in the middle ground. Sure, you could try to use the crossbow or the pistol, but that's going to prove to be very challenging. I'm thinking throwing knives would be the most versatile of the stealth weapons. They'd be optimal for medium range, but you could also use them in close quarters or even at decent distances. The difference here is that they do minimal damage. Something with a vast range of use that's also stealthy shouldn't deal a lot of damage. That's why we haven't seen and probably won't ever see a suppressed assault rifle. If we do, it'll probably be hot garbage for damage. Throwing knives also set themselves apart by being able to pick them back up to use again. I guess that's not as good as the infinite ammo of the crossbow though, and I guess depending on how good throwing knives were, or more specifically, how much damage they would deal, would determine if they would be infinitely reused or if they would degrade over time, with rarer variants lasting longer. One drawback of the crossbow is that you have to wait about half a second between shots. Seems fine to the crossbow for me, but throwing knives should be able to be spammed, I think. Basically, as fast as you can press the button is as fast as you can throw them. I'd also be fine with them having the option to hold down the throw button to either see a short arc of its trajectory or fly a little faster or more accurate. My ideal stats for throwing knives would be that they come in groups of 3 to 5, you can stack up to 15 of them, they do 5 damage plus another 1 damage per second for 5 seconds. If you hit them in the head, it's still 5 damage, but will do 1 damage per second for 10 seconds instead of 5. They would be green in rarity, you would throw them overhanded and they would arc slightly, somewhere between the arc of a grenade and the bullet drop of a sniper, making it kind of a comfortable mid-range weapon. You can pick them back up from where they landed or what they were stuck in, but they would be small and harder but not impossible to see than the rest of the loot in the game. Now let's talk about that boomerang. I think this item would certainly have to have a durability. Let's call it 3 throws for now. This item would have a set range in which it would be effective. I'm not entirely sure on the range at which someone can throw a boomerang and have it come back to them, so let's say somewhere between 50 meters and 150 meters. You could throw it at something farther, but it would cap out at 150 and simply return to you. You could throw it at something closer than 50 meters, but it wouldn't return to you. It would just fall where it was hit. This item would be a hard one to implement, so for ease of use, the boomerang would hit its target if you threw it when your crosshairs were near the enemy. The boomerang would do the rest. So when you throw it, the boomerang would swing wide left, curving around towards its target, and then curving back to you. I'm thinking this thing would be very forgiving, and I'm talking there could be an enemy running up a hill 70 meters from you. By the time the boomerang reaches him, he's already moved 20 meters in a different direction. I still think the boomerang should reach its target. Does it make sense? No, not entirely, but I do think it's balanced. Implementing it this way would guarantee that you hit your target, in a perfect scenario. The path your boomerang takes is going to vary depending on how far away your target is from you, and at what angle they are to you. That alone is going to make this item hard to use. Even if it has a sort of honing in system that will always go towards the target you aim at, the reason it will be difficult is because there will be trees, rocks, buildings, towers, hills, and other terrain features that could get in the way of its flight path. I imagine about midway through its flight, it would be higher in the air so that it would avoid most trees and single or even two-story buildings. But even with that, there are still buildings and trees and especially hills and mountains that are much taller than 2 stories. The boomerang may be going right for the enemy every time, but if it happens to hit something on the way, it does no good. It falls where it hits, and you have to go back and pick it up. So even while having this thing basically aim for you and auto-lock onto its target or gravitate towards them, if you will, it would still be difficult to use. So difficult that I think it requires this auto-locking type of attribute for it to be usable at all. Also, don't forget that if you want this thing to grab up an item, it's going to have to successfully travel back to you without hitting anything on its way back too. Not only can terrain get in your way, but the enemy may build walls to easily block it if they see or possibly hear the boomerang coming. I'm not trying to make this item not work in Fortnite. I actually really love this idea. I'm just trying to be realistic about its implementation. If it's going to steal something out of a player's inventory and give it to you, this thing would have to be decently hard to use. Plus, I'm trying to give you a reference point for how strong this honing attribute should be in order to make it viable because of how impossible it would be to use without that. So let's now assume that you've successfully hit an enemy with your boomerang. What happens? It's going to fly back to you, glowing the color of the item that the boomerang snatched. It would snatch the item that the character had equipped. The enemy would auto-equip the next item in their inventory, that way it doesn't leave them without a weapon. And once the boomerang makes its way back to you, it would add that item to your inventory. If you only had one spot, it would put the item in the inventory and you would drop the boomerang. But if you had 2 or more open inventory slots, you would get the boomerang and the item back. You may be able to snatch someone's sniper from them, stopping them from sniping you or someone that they were scoped in at in the distance. You may be able to take a shield potion they were currently drinking and consume it yourself. Or you may take their good AR and use it on them to swing the fight. It's a crazy ability, but honestly, I think it would work. I just think it would be hard to implement the physics and game mechanisms necessary to make it happen. What do you guys think of a boomerang? If the weapon stealing is a little too crazy, it could simply just do damage, something like 50 damage, maybe even just be an item that can curve around to hit players behind cover. And what do you think of throwing knives? Something stealthy, good for mid-range, and has a bleeding effect. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, thumbs it up and subscribe for Fortnite and all things gaming. This has been Toast, and I'll see you on the next video.